Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Nina. I want to talk to you today about my goals for 2022 and why I got into quilting and what I've done since my last video. So first of all, I also want to tell you that I'm a Christian and that if that's offensive to you, I'm sorry, but it does play a part in what I'm talking about today. And I believe that God wants everyone to know him and that he loves everyone. So I hope you find out who he is. So my goal for 2022 is to make more quilts. And I want to do that with making some baby blankets or baby quilts and giving them to a group that collects them in my community. So I'm not asking for donations or fabric. If you want to make quilts, or you can do that in your own community. But this is just my journey as a Christian to give back to my community. So the goal is to make 12 baby quilts and 6 lap quilts. Every year in November, they collect blankets and coats for people in need, and then they give them away at Christmas time. So my goal is to have 12 baby blankets and 6 lap quilts. I think I can get that done. And if I can get more done, that'd be awesome. But 12 and 6 are my goals for this year. And I also have some unfinished quilts and projects from 2021. And so I want to get those finished as well this year because I've put a lot of time and money into them and I like the project still. I just didn't get them finished last year. So there'll be some cross stitching as well as some other quilts that I want to do this year. And to help me keep track of all that, I am participating in the American Patchwork and Quilting UFO Challenge on Facebook. And they had so to help me keep track of that, I've made a tracker using a using a journal that I bought at Walmart. I have a lot of these laying around. They're the unlined, they have the little dots, so I can make my own charts. And instead of printing out the tracker that American Patchwork and Quilting had on Facebook, I made my own. Somebody in the group shared a layout that they were using, and I asked if I could copy it, and they said sure. So I've listed all my quilts and unfinished projects. I have 3 cross-stitch projects that I want to do this year as well. And then I'm just checking off as I get different things done. You know, I've got the patterns bought and the fabric. Some of them, they're cut out already. Then once I have it all pieced together, quilted, binding, and donated or given away, and then I mark that as finished. So that's what my layout is, and that's just to help me keep track of where I'm at. And then I made another little journal, a little entry. Sorry about my voice, and I am looking at a board that I've written kind of some notes on to help me keep track because I'm still pretty new at making these videos, and I'm a little bit nervous, so I apologize that I keep looking down. So on this journal entry here, in the red, I've got space for 12 baby blankets that I'll come up with names and mark them off as I get them done. And that's in the red. It's my top priority. Then I have some family quilts that I want to make, and I listed those. And then the 6 lap quilts. And then there's some space down here because quilting is just like walking into a candy shop. You know, I see a block of the month or I see a block of the week and I just have to make it, or I want to make it. So that's the goal this year, is to make more quilts. So that space is to keep track of those blocks and quilts as well. So you'll see some of those as we go along as well. So making baby quilts and lap quilts is my top priority for this year. Next, I want to talk to you about how I got into quilting. My mother was a sewer, and she would sew for other people. She put an ad in the paper, and people would ask her to make clothes for them, and she would do alterations, and she did it to make extra money for the family. So she did that since I was a little girl into high school. And so she taught me how to use a sewing machine. She also taught me how to cross stitch and embroidery. My dad's mom was a crocheter. She would crochet blankets and pillowcases for family members. She had like 40 grandchildren, and she made pillowcases for every grandchild, and she made them even for great-great-grandchildren and great-great-grandchildren. She lived to be 100. And on my mom's side, my granny, as we called her, she was the quilter. She learned to quilt after my grandfather passed away, and she did all of her quilting by hand. She would trace a pattern out onto a piece of cardboard, and then she would trace that cardboard template onto fabric, and she would cut the pieces out with scissors. It was 1980, but I don't think that rotary cutters were available at the time. I don't remember. But and she didn't have any of these tools that I have back here. She did it all by hand. And I'm going to show you one of her quilts here in a few minutes. But she was my inspiration for making quilts. And I wish that I had quilted with her when she was still alive. But I didn't have the desire to quilt at that time. It wasn't until I got married and my stepdaughters started having their own children that I got into quilting. When my stepdaughter told us that she was having our first grandchild, I knew I had to make something for this baby. I mean, it was my first grandchild. And a few years earlier, I had taught myself to crochet and made a baby blanket for my sister when she had her first child, and I knew I didn't want to do that again. So I went to the local quilt shop and asked them what could I make. And they asked if I knew how to sew, and I did. So they're like, you could buy this kit. It had 5-inch strips, and you just cut the strips into 5-inch blocks and make a baby blanket or baby quilt. So that's what I did. And I took it home and I cut it into blocks, and I sewed this quilt by hand, and then I quilted it by hand, just like my grandmother did, because I thought that's how you had to make a quilt. You know, I had a sewing machine, but I didn't even think about doing it on a sewing machine. So that's the reason I want to make videos for my grandchildren, because my hope is that when they get older and they want to make a quilt, if I'm not around, they can still quilt with me through the videos that I'm making today. So I'm not a professional. I'm just I've self-taught. I make mistakes. I don't always follow the rules. I kind of go my own path, and I use quilt shop fabric as well as dollar fabric. The quilt I'm going to show you that my grandmother made was made from scraps from a curtain factory in the town that she lived, and they would sell their scraps for $5 a bag. So she would buy a bag and make these beautiful quilts with them. And I've had it for over 30 years, well, for 30 years, and it's still good. So I want to show my love to others by making quilts, because I think everybody needs a little bit more love in this world. So the way I show my love is by making quilts. And I believe that we need to be the person we want the world to be. We can't just expect others to be more loving and giving unless we are loving and giving ourselves. So I hope you want to follow me in my journey making more quilts. And if you do, please hit the subscribe button. Now I'm going to show you some of those quilts that I was talking about. This is my grandmother's quilt. And I'm going to pop up a little clip here. And I don't know if you can see the detail in the quilt, but can you see the hand stitching in this quilt? And this quilt is 30 years old, but I still use it and I love it. The next quilt is a quilt that I made for my husband. I'm going to pop another little clip up. And now I'm going to show you some of the details. This was my first attempt at quilting such a big quilt. And I was hoping to learn how to do free motion quilting, but I ended up just using my walking foot and doing those really tight quilting lines and doing the stars that way, because I'm still practicing how to do free motion quilting, but it took a little bit more practice than what this quilt, this quilt was so big and I just wanted to get this quilt done. So I went back to the walking foot, and it still looks beautiful if you ask me. So, and then the next quilt, next thing I did this week was the Christmas quilt, 5-inch block quilt that I've been working on. I got the crosshatch quilting. I did it diagonal this time, and all I need to do is trim the edges and put the binding on it, and then it'll be finished by next week. I also got another baby quilt top finished. I had a different pattern in mind, but I didn't read the directions all the way through before I started cutting the fabric, and so this is what I came up with. And then I just need to put the batting and backing on and finish this. So that will be 2 out of 12 baby quilts that I want to have done. So that's moving right along. I forgot to mention that on the quilt that I made for my husband, that pattern is from Happy Cloud Creations. She has an Etsy shop that you can buy the pattern in, and the pattern is called Starlight Mountain. So that's all the quilts that I've been working on. Since my last video, I've rearranged my sewing space. I'm doing the decluttering challenge with Just Get It Done Quilts and Karen Brown. She has a great YouTube channel and Facebook group, so I hope you check her out. I get a lot of inspiration and just encouraging, and it just helps create that desire to make more quilts, which is what it's all about, is making more quilts. So thank you for watching, and may God bless you and keep you safe this week. See you next week. Bye.